Trump's Ohio divide deepens. Welcome to Columbus on the Record. I'm Mike Thompson. The pace of the Trump administration shows no sign of slowing. Week 3 brought the federal government closer to cutting off all foreign aid. Friday would have marked the deadline for federal workers to take a deferred resignation offer, but a judge put that on hold. Elon Musk continues his government cutting spree. Besides telling USAID workers to go home, he demanded the termination of federal office leases, and he got access to the U.S. Treasury's payment system. The president also mentioned that he wants the U.S. to take over Gaza and put the 2 million Palestinians who live there someplace else. And this week at the State House, a few hundred protesters gathered to denounce Musk and the actions of the Trump administration. Sim Gresham, it's exhausting trying to keep up, but how are Democrats and progressives trying to counter what Trump is doing in these first days?
I think that's our biggest problem right now, the speed at which he's moving. And I have to give him credit. He's been strategic in how he's organized and the things he's targeted. The aid organization is low-hanging fruit. Nobody is really out there for that. But when you go at the speed that I've learned, I'm an old bureaucrat, by the way. I work for the federal government, I work for the city, and I work for Ohio State. God, I'm a bureaucrat, aren't I?
Yes.
You go too fast, you make mistakes. And you make big mistakes. Sometimes you need to move back. He's also galvanizing the Democrats. I mean, so he's not doing everything great for himself.
Is he moving too fast, Terry? I mean, as he's flooding the zone, it's hundreds of executive orders. Some are more symbolic than others.
Well, some Republicans will tell you there's a little too much theater and a little too much shiny objects. But I know this week, because one of the Central Ohio congressmen was in the meeting yesterday at the White House, they're trying to figure out the tax policy, the budget policy. And on MSNBC yesterday, not exactly a conservative thing, John Kasich was on there and reminded people we've got a $36 trillion deficit, and this fiscal year alone will add another $2 trillion to that. So clearly we need to have some trimming, some reality checks, but again, separate out what doom and gloom people say versus what really happens, because the Canadian and Mexican tariffs didn't happen, at least for now.
Yeah, they put them on hold right while they struck a deal right away. The State House protest, it was sizable but not huge, right, Jesse? It was loud but didn't overwhelm anything.
Yeah, and I think people are looking to express their opinions on these various policies. I think you're seeing that in Washington, D.C. as well. Whether Trump is turning on the television to see what the people at the Ohio State House are doing, I'd be surprised, but it'll remain to be seen what some of these policies really mean for Ohioans. Like you said, it's really coming at a rapid pace, and a lot of orders are starting and then stopping. And so there's just, some confusion about what this will ultimately mean for Ohioans.
Yeah, we've seen some local organizations that hand out a lot of federal grants say, even though that funding memo was paused, that they're not going to give out grants because they're not sure what the future holds, Sarah.
Absolutely. I think it's a little bit of wait and see for everybody right now. Like Jesse said, I mean, you can't really do anything at the federal level, at the state level, without a lawsuit. So there's pending lawsuits on those items. And of course, some organizations, when you're talking about the cuts over at USAID, I saw that Catholic Relief Services, a major Catholic organization that does a lot of charity work abroad, there's reporting that they've been laying off staff already. So there are some organizations that are already taking, cost-cutting actions when it comes to some of the slashes in some of these agencies, but I think a lot remains to be seen.
Speaking as a former bureaucrat, when you have a transition of power, it's always a little weird, but this is pretty drastic.
No, this is draconian.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like this. I've been out here more than 30 years, and I've never seen anything like it. Now, the question becomes, ultimately, we're going to get to the Supreme Court. And what the Supreme Court does. The only problem with our laws is they take time. And you had 60,000 people purportedly signed up to get out of the federal government. I can imagine the trauma that caused people, 60,000 of them.
But I'd say more of the impact's going to be in the D.C. area, not as much in Columbus or Ohio, because if I was one of these many deputy, associate, undersecretaries in D.C. at all the different departments, those kind of jobs are much more in question and doubt. Do you really need that many deputy, undersecretary, associates there? But in Ohio, you've got more people that are doing things at Wright-Patterson or at the Defense Supply Agency on the east side, et cetera, where there's actual work being accomplished and done and that can be measured.
All right. Governor DeWine used his state budget proposal this week to show support for Ohio's current method of paying for public schools. The governor's budget would pay for the final phase of a $2 billion program in state assistance for public school districts that may put him at odds with House Speaker Matt Huffman. Huffman has called that plan unsustainable and says current lawmakers should not have to pay for a plan developed years ago. The two men could be more aligned on private school vouchers for all. The governor's budget includes money to pay for the greatly expanded voucher program, which costs the state about $1 billion a year. Sarah Donaldson, this is basically status quo as far as funding for public education. As far as the governor is concerned, can the state afford it? That's the big question.
Well, that is the big question, and you hit the nail on the head that the question also is going to be if Speaker Huffman and Senate President Rob McCauley find that alignment with DeWine, because Huffman not only called it unsustainable, he said it was a fantasy to continue funding the Fair School Funding Plan. Now, there are some changes that DeWine's proposed budget makes as well, reducing guarantees that schools with reduced enrollment get. There's also some grant money for school bus safety that's kind of outside of that, main pot of education funding. That comes from conversations with a school bus safety task force that came after that horrible crash on the west side of Ohio. So, you see a lot of different areas being funded. Vouchers are part of that. As it's not that DeWine left vouchers out, but I think the reliance on vouchers versus this public school funding is the question.
Jesse, where do the rank and file lawmakers stand on this? Because they have to go back to their districts and their school districts and the parents and the taxpayers in those districts. And if they see major changes to school funding and there's levies coming up and things like that, that's going to cause their phone to ring.
Yeah, I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head there. It really does depend. Even within the Republican caucus, there are former teachers or people who are quite well versed in the K-12 education system that might push back a little bit against cuts. There are people who were there for the plan that was struck 4 years ago and would like to see it come to fruition. In the past, Speaker Huffman, former Senate President Huffman, has used the vouchers as kind of a trade-off for the school funding model. So will that be the case this budget term?
Has this program worked? We're 4 years into this 6-year program. All goes back to DeRolf and trying to have fair and equitable public education throughout the state, trying to, help the folks that don't have as much money. Sam, has it worked?
No, it has not worked. And, the logic of that I don't understand. Why would you want to cannibalize educational system? The producer of the future leaders and producers of the future. I don't understand it. And it puzzles me. Public education in particular. Why would you want to do that to it? Now, the second thing is the Constitution clearly said there should be a separation of state and church. They have obliterated that line now. They've taken public money in a larger dose than ever been expected.
To Catholic or religious schools. Terry, are we heading for a battle here over the future of school funding?
Well, we're going to have quite a battle because also on top of this, we've got the property tax questions because with reappraisals, little things like inside millage that I won't start to explain to more people.
Thank you for that.
But there's a whole lot of different questions, moving parts. But this whole business of the guarantee and the state continuing to fund phantom students, thousands of them that are not there into districts. So there's a lot of questions. But the big difference is Ohio doesn't have the federal money. It doesn't have I think in the next 30 months there's going to be a shrinkage of sales tax, income tax not be as growing as much as, so we're now in financial reality and there's going to be adjustments.
All right, our next topic, Governor DeWine wants to increase taxes. He wants to double a tax, in fact, to help pro sports owners build their stadiums. DeWine's budget proposes doubling the sports gambling tax from 20% to 40%. Now, the original tax would continue to pay for things like education programs, but the new money would go to pay for youth programs and a fund to help pay for pro stadiums in Ohio. First up, likely would be the new proposed home of the Cleveland Browns. They want to abandon their now 25-year-old stadium on the lakefront for a dome stadium just outside the city. According to Forbes magazine, by the way, the owner of the Browns, Jimmy Haslam, is worth $8.5 billion. Terry Casey, I thought Republicans were opposed to raising taxes. So with tax and spend, Mike DeWine wants to tax gambling and spend it on Brown stadiums.
So your question is, what's the odds of this passing?
Yes.
The odds are just as good as the Browns on Sunday evening winning the Super Bowl. And of course, and neither are the Bengals going to win it. So this Ohio General Assembly, anytime they hear the word higher or doubling or tripling of taxes, it gets them nervous and they aren't very happy. There's already signs publicly. Legislators are not that excited, but this is problemsome. And another problem is this whole internet gambling thing. People are now just starting to discover how they're using AI to hook people with gambling problems even worse on the problem. So this is tangled, but don't expect it to happen any soon. But at least Mike DeWine can check the box off and tell Mr. Haslam, well, I tried to come up with a new idea, and he can blame it on the General Assembly.
Sin taxes are different taxes, though, Jesse, right? Republicans have raised taxes on cigarettes and alcohol and gambling and marijuana. They want to raise the taxes on marijuana.
Yeah, we talked about school funding earlier. I think part of the general budget debate is going to be whether the Ohio lawmakers want to lower the income tax. So that seems to be the direction they're going, and that would be less money for all these kinds of things. So do you want to raise the tax on tobacco? Do you want to raise the tax on marijuana? Do you want to raise the tax on gambling? Those are all venues that Mike DeWine says, well, these are specific taxes. We're not just going after everyone in Ohio. But will that fly with the legislature?
And he did raise the gas tax way, way back when he first came into office. He did.
But our roads are better now, thankfully.
Oh, you can get to that Cleveland Brown Stadium much easier.
Absolutely.
So getting back to this funding for, I don't know what the ratio is in the Governor DeWine's proposal versus how much would go to the youth programs and how much would go to the stadium. My guess is it's not 50-50.
It hasn't been released yet,
But
to
it's
my
not probably
understanding.
50-50,
I'm not.
Maybe it's more youth. And
I
less
think people would just have to apply.
Yes.
And so do the kids have the best lobbying or do the Haslams have the best lobbying? Perhaps we'd find out.
And I'm definitely putting this sports gambling tax because it's a tax on proprietors. It's not a tax on people who are placing the bets. It's a tax on the operators themselves. Yeah. And although I see Terry's point that raising taxes probably gives Republicans hives, particularly with this sports gambling receipts tax. Sports gambling is 2 years old in Ohio. Tax started at 10%. Last budget cycle, Governor DeWine pushed it to 20%. He advocated for that. Now he wants to see it at 40%. So that is a double and then another double. And you've got also the interesting piece of lawmakers, at least last year, were talking about early stages of looking at whether Ohio wants to add iGaming, which is online casinos, to their portfolio. So, there is a reliance on the tax revenue streams that these put out. I think something like a raise on the excise tax on marijuana is maybe more likely. There's been bills to do that.
How about putting the taxes, Sam, into education programs rather than to building new stadiums?
The Golden King said something the other day that struck me. He said we are 50th in the world on education. We're not interested in improving education. I think we are trying to cannibalize and kill public education in particular and bolster private education. The strength of this country has been our educational system at critical times in the history of this country. It amazes me as books have been presented out, and I've read some of them, on the destruction of democracies And you're watching some of those books come to life right now and what we're going through in this country. It's a frightening time right now.
You know, the Browns are going to ask for money, and they're probably going to get some money. But then when the Browns ask for money, the Bengals want some money. The Nationwide Arena apparently needs a $400 million renovation. That's more than double the cost of the arena when it was built. Does a fund make sense? Is he on the right? Is the governor on the right track? To let's put our cards on the table. Here's a fund to fix up stadiums. Apply for it.
But a lot of this is lunacy. I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals want a big chunk of their money, tens of millions of dollars, to improve the fan experience with a bigger scoreboard so they can have more advertising to make more money. I mean, these people are billionaire owners. They can afford it. It's crazy. And again, I think the legislature, there's a lot of people that came from Coshocton County. Not many people in Coshocton County can afford to buy season tickets, spend the money for the parking and the concessions. This is a thing that's changing, and I think it's going to be an uphill climb to be mild.
The scoreboards are pretty cool, though. You have to admit. They're pretty
But
cool.
how many tens
With
of
the circular
millions do you
ones?
spend, and then there's only 8 home games a year in the NFL?
Yeah. Anyway, big TVs. Anyway, the Republican race for governor looks to be a two-man race. State Treasurer Robert Sprague announced this week he would skip a long shot run for governor and go for Secretary of State. That leaves Attorney General Dave Yost and probably former presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy as the two major Republican candidates. Ramaswamy this week told the Wall Street Journal he plans to seek a second term as Ohio's governor, even though he has not formally announced his bid for a first term, let alone won that first term. Jesse Balmert, the man plans ahead.
You know, politics comes at you fast. Didn't we just finish a presidential race? It's right. I think we already have a two-person race for the GOP primary. You have Attorney General Dave Yost, who has been in that position and previously been auditor, kind of worked his way up. And then you have Vivek Ramaswamy, who's kind of this brand of Republicans who have the money and have the interests and are not going to wait in line for their job. I think you saw that from now Vice President J.D. Vance. You saw that from Bernie Moreno, our recently elected senator. And so is experience something Republicans are looking for in their candidate? Or do you want someone with, new ideas who's getting out there?
The bid for a second term there's a strategy there, right, Terry?
It's called cut off Yost from attacking him. Don't vote for him for governor because he'll just go ahead and turn around and run for president. But we're still over 360 days to the filing deadline. So there's a lot of twists and turns that happen. But Yost versus Ramaswamy, what a fascinating theater it'll be, because both of them are people that are not shy when they're around the TV cameras, and they like to come up with new, interesting ideas. So this will give you something to report in the coming weeks.
Sam, how do progressives, Democrats view this?
It's in a puddle of arrogance. You wouldn't believe Ramaswamy. Who's going to elect? Well, he ran for president. I'm sorry. I misspoke. I'm wondering when these fireballs are going to burn out and what will be left of this country and this state once they burn out. You know, they've gone on and made their gazillions. The average person on the street corner is confused as hell right now. They really are.
Is there the Ramaswamy supporters released a poll last week, very internal poll, very early poll, showed he had a big lead. It really kind of is almost meaningless at this point because we have a year until the filing deadline, never mind a year before the campaign. Dave Yost, is there a favorite here, Sarah?
I don't want to say there's a favorite. I think the favorite will be determined whether by who President Donald Trump throws his support behind, whether he chooses to do that or not. Now, of course, Vivek Ramaswamy spent a short period of time in the Trump administration's orbit, I would say. He was
6 weeks
with the Department of Governmental Efficiency, and of course has now been laying groundwork to run for governor. So it would seem likely that Trump would support him, but you can't know until you know. Trump has certainly changed course before.
In 2010, John Kasich made noise about this time that he was going to run for governor, but he worked hard. He went to every Lincoln dinner, every Republican Party function he could get to and around the state. Does Ramaswamy do that, Terry? Does he need to do that if he gets the Trump endorsement?
Well, I think the people around him have told him and he did it a bit in Iowa, a lot of the grassroots groundswell type of things. But that's part of the test that Yost is going to say, versus him, who's going to work the hardest, who's going to get to know Ohio, because Ohio with 88 counties, it's major urban areas, it's a very challenging political environment. That's part of the test in the next year. Is he for real? What's he want to do as governor? Those are the questions. There's time to answer it.
Jesse, on the Democratic side, it's Amy Acton. She's sending out fundraising emails, but nobody else has really said that they're preparing to announce, as far as I know.
Yeah, that's the name that's out there. There are a number of people who could get in. The bench is just smaller on the Democratic side, and so you don't have statewide elected officials kind of moving around from position to position on that side of the aisle.
Jim Ryan is a name that's been mentioned, Allison Russo. Chris Redfern, former party chair, has talked about it.
And there's some Democrats still hoping Sherrod will run for governor instead of running for senator. I still think he goes for senator. That's what he wants.
Okay. State employees who have enjoyed working from home have received notice. Those days soon come to an end. 2 weeks after President Trump ordered federal workers back to the office, Governor DeWine ended most remote work for state workers. The move comes as some high-profile local companies have done the same. Chase Bank, AEP, Wendy's, they have all in recent weeks told their employees to come on back. Jesse Balmer, is the days of work from home, are they coming to an end? Is this a sign?
I mean, I think you're certainly seeing that trend, whether that's starting even with President Donald Trump and then recently Ohio Governor Mike DeWine, a lot of different local businesses that are making that transition. And I think you're seeing pushback from people for a variety of reasons, whether that be, you know, you live up in Delaware County and it's quite the commute down to Columbus, or childcare concerns, which have always been an issue. And so we'll see if that's a talent drain for the state of Ohio, or if people will, you know, make the transition smoothly. We will see. The deadline for this is in mid-March, so we'll see what happens.
Nothing has really changed in the state for the past year. COVID it's basically status quo. Why did Mike DeWine do this now? Is it because Donald Trump did it with the federal workers?
I'm sure that played a part in it. And, you know, the state tried this before. There was a late in the budget cycle, last budget cycle amendment to bring workers back. I want to say it was in 2023 when the budget was working. Now, at that time, Attorney General Dave Yost had sent a YouTube video out to his employees saying, we've sold office space, we're going to fight against this. But I'm sure, you know, city mayors, particularly in this situation, Andrew Ginther is doing a little dance because it does, you know, have the potential to revive the economy downtown.
Bottom line, that is it. It has nothing to do with efficiency. The vacancy rate's too high. So quid pro quo, political playoff, then we're going to lease this space. That has nothing to do with
The
it.
key thing is there's certain little weasel words in the order, because the reality is if you're a prison guard, you're driving a snowplow, you had to be at work anyway. But there's a lot of people in certain departments that do customer service where you can have them on a computer, you can easily measure efficiency, who's working or not working. But there's pressure from the General Assembly to get them back to work. I think the governor and the others will finesse, but again, one size won't fit all.
Yeah, I mean, the cop on the beat has to come to work every day, but the person who works in the accounting office and the police headquarters, they don't. They could probably do their work from home at least some days of the week. It's just a different job. How many state agencies have cut back on the amount of space they're leasing? Is this going to be a factor?
I know this will be a factor, and there are some provisions in this order for that. Like if there is no office to return to the office to, I think you're going to get a little dispensation for that. So again, I think it'll be interesting. There's also not a great like statewide number because each department and each statewide official kind of runs their own shop as far as HR and so forth. So it's hard to get a good sense of how occupied state offices are.
All right, let's get to our final off-the-record parting shots. Sam Gresham, you're up first.
It was interesting to watch the analysis and dynamics around the National Football Championship. 1 week they were going to fire him. The next week he's perfect as dough.
Ryan Day, you mean?
Yes,
You got a big extension.
yes.
Could be here a long time. Terry.
Football, I wish you'd play back the tape from mid-August when I said Will Howard was the real deal, and I've been following when he was out at Kansas State. But my upcoming prediction is this fall could be very different because the loss of top coaches, certain players graduating, going to the NFL. We can hope for another national championship, but it's going to be challenging.
No excuses in Buckeye Nation, Terry. No excuses.
Well, but reality's going to set in.
Sarah.
Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost, who we've talked about a lot today, sent a letter to the controlling board asking them to wait on extending Jobs Ohio's contract even further. He's asking for a little more transparency into the process.
This is their deal with the liquor stores around the state.
Yes.
How much money they're making from there. Yep, Jessica.
Bringing us back to football, neither the Bengals nor the Browns will be in the Super Bowl, but a product of Ohio will be there, the footballs from Ada.
Ada, that's right. The NFL footballs.
They'll score lots of touchdowns.
That's right. Ohio will be well represented. I always say work from home is here to stay if it survives the next recession. Then we'll know it's here to stay. If work from home is there after we have a next recession, we'll be hybrid forever. Anyway, that is Columbus on the Record for this week. Continue the conversation on Facebook. You can watch us anytime, of course, on your time. Watch us at wosu.org/COTR. We're also on YouTube and the PBS video app. For our crew and our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.